Good evening. This is Dr. Bill White again with the American Orthodontic Society, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about uprighting teeth and what we did early on when we had no good bonding material. We had to use the bands that were cemented to the teeth, and we could do some, as we have shown you in the earlier video there, where we used acrylic and powder and liquid and etched the surface of the tooth. We could do some light bonding that way, but this way we had bands on the teeth to upright them, and we used an archwire with a couple of springs built into the archwire, which is, the principle is the same, and to learn how to do that is good. You may need to know how to do that during some of your adult cases where things are pretty tough to do. So it's good to learn this other method of uprighting the teeth. So I'm going to get started on that. And this was a lady who worked in the office, and she had a lot of missing teeth and everything else. And she wanted me to see if we could upright this tooth right here, this molar, and then she could bridge it, and she was going to get a bridge across to these teeth up above. And that was about all the orthodontics she was going to have done. So anyway, we'll go at it and show you. There's a principle in putting a spring in the archwire. Like if your archwire is running right along here, and this archwire doesn't meet this right here, then you have to lower this down to where you can get in contact with this. Now if this tooth were up higher, up something like this, and this wire met this one right here, then you would put a spring in that part to level this out, or you'd have to go back here to do it. But you could do it right here and have your tube in the tooth somewhere around there. Now, in this particular case, you had to drop it down, you see, to get into the tube of the tooth right here. So we came along with the archwire, something like this. And I may miss the mark here, but you drop this down, and then you come back over here, and you make a loop, something like that, and you bring it out over here, and you make the loop coming up, and then you have this one going in that direction. Now, this spring here allows you to lower this down. In other words, you can bring this down something like this, and it's turning around this way, and then the wire goes out. Now as you activate this one, you're going to be bending it up this way. In other words, then you would put it into this tooth right here, and that would tighten this spring, and it's going to try to loosen, and this one tightens this spring, so it wants to pick this whole thing up, and this one wants to level it out. And that's actually what we did. We had to design this right on the bracket table, and then we built this and put it on the lower arch like that. Now this one went, this right here allowed you to bring this down here, and this one you could take it was out straight, but as you bent it up this way, it tightened it up, you see, and so it tends to level the tooth out, and this one tends to bring it up like that. And we put this on this lady who was working at our desk, and literally I forgot about it for a month or two, and then she said, well, you ought to take a look at my tooth over here. Now this was bracketed, you see, and this archwire was in there, and so I went and looked at the tooth, and I was astonished at how much it had moved. In other words, from here now, you can look down on it, and there's where it was. It moved up that way, that far, straightened that tooth up by one activation and just leaving it alone. And it straightened that tooth out. Then you have to wait for a while for the bone to fill in around the roots, and then she had this bridged, and up above was bridged also. Now we could do this type of work before we had the bonding agents and everything, and you could upright teeth by using that double loop technique, and the principle is exactly the same. Nowadays you could go in, well, or right after we've had bonding material, and just take one little spring and put it on there and bond something on these teeth and bring that spring up and hook it here, and it would kick this tooth up and do almost exactly the same thing. But this is how we had to do things before we had brackets and before we had good bonding material. We had to do that. So that's good to learn that, though, and that principle is the same thing. It doesn't matter how old it is or what. And you can upright. This lady was probably in her 50s, and this was back in 1973 when we started this, and we worked on her and let it sit there for a while, and the bone come in, and then finally had to come back, and she had a bridge put in that area and one up above too. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and show this through. So here we are at this point, and then there this spring is. Now we just came right across here, and we came down, came back, made a loop here, which would tighten when you brought this down, see, so it'd bring it up. This one goes over here, and the loop is in this direction, and the wire goes straight out. But when we brought this down, we had to activate this one, something like that, that tightened it up, and so between the two of these springs, it brought this tooth up like that. Now this, you need to learn that principle, because you're going to have teeth at different levels in here, and if you do it with an archwire, you're going to have to bring the archwire down or up or whatever. Otherwise, if a line between the two groups meets at some point where it meets, you can make this little deal like that, and then you can raise that up and hook it in like we're closing this space on adults or something like that. We line it, all we had to do is just raise those up. Now you tie through this, and this would be your molar or something you were bringing in. You tie through this and go around here, and the tighter you pull it, it'll pull this over, and the more activation you have here, it will tend to bring these roots forward. Like if you've got this and you put that in there, and if you've got two teeth in here and they're in a line, then you just put one of these things and this would take care of both teeth. But if one tooth is lower down like this, then you have to make a spring for it too. So you can just, but you can take two teeth that are lined up like that and straighten them out with just one spring where the lines meet between the teeth. Now that's, if you're just into orthodontics, that will baffle you for a little bit. But anyway, that works. And it worked then, and it'll work now. And that was about 46 years ago. A lot of you weren't even born then, and so you think, well, this is just old-timey stuff, you know, but it's not. That principle is just as good today as it was the day we came up with that. But we started using stuff like this before we had good bonding material. And this would work then, and it worked on older people way back there when a lot of the orthodontists just said, well, you can't straighten anybody's teeth after about 18 or 20 years old, and that was just absolutely wrong. You can straighten people's teeth as long as they're alive if they've got any bone structure on there to work with, and they're good, healthy people. And I'll be 92 next birthday, and I could still straighten my teeth. Now, and they would move too. If I did something to put pressure on them where it's unequal, the teeth will move. So anyway, let's see if I got anything else on this particular case. Now, I didn't need to do this. I just had an archwire back here, had a bracket up here, and a bracket over here. She was working at the office, and I didn't do a lot of records on her. I just did this thing, and we actually designed it and put it on her, and forgot about it. And really, she reminded me, said, you ought to look at my tooth. And I looked in there, and I was really amazed. I shouldn't have been so amazed because the thing was designed to work, and it did work. And that principle we've used for years, where the two teeth are lined up. You just draw a line. If they cross, then that's where you make your spring. And then if the lines don't line up, then you've got to drop it some way or another to get it in there. And so you can come back and come over with the other deal and drop it down and do it that way. Now with these real flexible wires, we just run them down and run them there, and they move it a little bit. And a lot of the people who use them don't actually understand the principle of what they're doing with this multiple flexible wires, you know, that are so flexible. But that's the principle. If you're using regular arch wires that have some stiffness to them, and you have to bend them to fit the thing. So you need to understand that, whether you use it every day or not. So let's go on and see what else. But here that is again, and you can see it after it's straightened the tooth up. Then this just assumes as if the arch wire just went straight across here, see. Now you couldn't run the wire through there when the tooth was down here. So that thing keeps coming up. But you go and turn down here, make a circle right here, then you come over here and you make a circle this way, and now if you didn't look at anything, the archwire is the same. But I can take this loop and go down with it, and then run this one down here. Then I could bend this up whatever angle I want to and put it through the tube on the molar, and the final result of it would be it'll bring it up to here, and this regardless of upper teeth. So this is something that was used prior to better bonding material and everything like that. So let me see. Here the tooth is, and we came in and put that archwire in there, and then I ran a wire back through it just to stabilize it. And this, you didn't tear up the attachment, you see, so bone fills in all these places where it looks like you've got a pocket now going down to here, but you don't. You leave this alone and bone will fill in that area right there. And it doesn't make a darn whether they're 15 or 50 or 90. That will go, and it will work, and you can move teeth at any age, and it doesn't take a lot longer to do it in adults than it did in kids. In fact, adults take care of it better, and sometimes it's easier to do it. But you have a lot of other things like periodontal disease and temporomandibular joint problems. Of course, you can have that with kids too. Somebody's just they're abusing their joints, you see. All right, let me see if I've got anything else on this. And there's the tooth again back here, but nothing. And there, after we stayed there for a while and let the bone kind of fill in before she had the bridge. She waited quite a while, I think, just to save up money enough to get the bridges back when they were, we'd say dirt cheap nowadays, but compared with what they are today. Now there it is, you see, we ran just a straight wire right through it and held it there while the bone filled in around the area. And that's it again and again, and there it is. And so that's the end of it, and I want to thank you for watching and try to learn how things were done when there wasn't as much help. Brackets are wonderful, and you can finish a case like you want to. And so I want to close out and say appreciate it. I'd like for you to join our group and subscribe to our channel. Now we're glad you watched, and I hope somebody learned something about orthodontics watching these videos. So I won't say goodbye.